Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and this is the Twosun Ts279 sent to me by Q-Ball. Q-Ball, thank you very much. I appreciate all the support. You've been a great friend, and this was one of the knives he sent that I was really impressed with. Now, I did see this one online, and, you know, even though everything about it I loved so much, once I seen the little recurve on the front of the blade, I kind of shied away from it, although this is kind of the reason why I fell in love with it. Not only all the other things, but this blade shape has been extremely useful. And I'm going to get more into that here in just a second. But I do have to say I did tune the Detent. Now, it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. I think it was just fine, but Q-Ball wanted it just a little bit stronger, so we made it a little bit stronger. Now, what I did was I took it apart, and Twosuns are extremely easy to take apart. Their build quality is just amazing. They're so easy to take apart and put back together. And in this case, it was only 2 screws. This screw here and the pivot screw, which is a D-shaped pivot. Took those 2 screws out, scale popped right off, and then I tuned the Detent. So by tuning the Detent, what I did was I bent the lock bar over slightly. A little goes a long way, but I pushed this lock bar towards the show side. You know, obviously after taking it all apart and only having this one scale in my hand, I pushed it over and slightly, ever so slightly, put a little bit more bend to it, or a little bit more tension to it. And then after putting it back together, it got incredibly well tuned. I mean, this Detent is nice and strong now, and the drop is still very smooth, and you'll see the centering is still perfection. You can't get any better centering than that. And since they have this little groove that goes down the back spacer, you know, you can really tell if the centering is off. So that is awesome. Now, this thing rides on caged ceramic bearings, and it has a little washer that separates the ceramic bearings from the titanium. One, it makes it really nice and smooth for the bearings to ride on that, or to roll around on the washer that has a groove put in it, but also it separates them from damaging the titanium. Now, after tuning it, very nice action, but before it had amazing action, so I don't want to make it seem like it only has amazing action because I tuned the Detent. It had great action before. This hole is placed in a nice spot, and it is incredibly easy to get to. It's just bang right there, right where you'd want it, and the chamfering around the hole and the sharpness of it is also very nice. So you don't slip out of it or anything like that. It's perfectly placed. You get a good position to flick it, and you know, you can use your nail or just the meat of your finger. It doesn't matter. But that is the only deployment option, or the thumb option, but the hole option is the only deployment method. So, but it's easy to also do the thumb flick. Now, the lock bar is very soft, very smooth. Well, there's, you know, they're very generous with it. They give you lots of access, and it is nice and soft to the touch. You do have to let it go all the way down, though. There's no flipper tab to block it, and the Detent is slightly late. It is about right there, but then there's a ramp, so you have to get past to about right there in order to let it drop. But you naturally let it drop all the way down to here anyways. You don't have to let the edge hit your finger, but I sometimes do by holding it to the side like that. But if you point your finger this direction, you know, you won't hit your nail. You can just stop it before you get to the edge. But it is very smooth on the drop, nice and glassy even when you slow roll it. And from here to the all the way locked position, it kind of sucks the blade into the lock position from here to all the way open. It's kind of satisfying the way it feels. And you got a really strong thumb flick. Incredibly smooth, though. Very nice action. It's kind of addicting, and you can do it with the left hand. Now, you can hold it up here like this. You do have to hold it a little bit lower, but you can easily do it. You just got to hold a little bit lower on the lock bar, but it is still very easy. I mean, I'm not left-handed, and I can do it without a problem. That doesn't mean the clip is reversible or anything like that, but now, the ergos. The ergos are pretty comfortable in the hand. It is a little slimmer in this direction, but it's pretty perfect, you know, thick wise. So you do have a nice grip on it, and you got a little spot right here for 3 fingers, and then your 4th finger will wrap around the bottom like that. You have a little bit of jimping to really lock yourself in, and you always have this choil area to get really close to the blade, you know, if you really need to bear down. But the geometry of the blade is really nice. It is a full flat grind, and it does get down to a nice thin, keen edge. Now, this blade shape, it kind of wraps itself into the cut. So it makes it possible for you, when you're dragging it through, say, a long piece of cardboard, it doesn't just pull out. It stays in and kind of hooks itself into the cardboard to where you can do long drag cuts. You know, like when you get to the end of the cut and sometimes it feels like it slips out, this makes it to where you can even keep going and then even rotate your wrist, you know, forward to even go even farther, because it just really traps the material into this little, you know, into the front tip of the edge. And being only 15 thousandths behind the edge, it's nice and thin, nice and slicey. So this thing cuts like a beast. And I tried to get some footage at work cutting really, really long strips of cardboard, but the camera just wasn't put in the right position, and I didn't get the best you know, view of it, I guess. So I apologize for that. But man, does this thing work really good for long cuts where you're kind of having to stretch and reach, you know, to get to the end of the cut. This thing works great. And then just regular slicing, just period, slicing period. It, like I said, it kind of locks itself into the cut to where it doesn't, you know, it doesn't slip out or anything, which does make cutting a lot, you know, easier and better. Then for utility cuts, it's like a claw. You know, you just hook right into things and easily go around things and slice things open. There was a large part of my day at work where I had to do a bunch of utility cuts, opening boxes and all kinds of things like that. And it worked so good. And I wish I would have gotten a video of me cutting straps, because that's another thing. I had to cut probably, I don't know, 200 straps today. And going like, you know, snagging it underneath a strap and then popping a strap, it locks itself that way too. So it's just such a good working blade shape, man. This thing works so good. Now, if you don't like it, you could so easily sharpen it into a regular Wharncliffe or sheep's foot. This could so easily sharpen out. All you'd have to do is put it on a stone and sharpen it the same way you would a Wharncliffe. Just go straight across the stone, nice and flat, and it would take this little recurve right out. In just a few minutes, you could easily make this a perfect Wharncliffe with no recurve, if the recurve bothers you. However, I think the recurve in this case works so good for the knife. Now, you know, aside from the utility cuts and cutting performance, which is so great, the clipping carries. So it carries good, and the clip in the hand is, you don't feel it at all. I mean, this is a real minimal style clip, and you know, this little ramp they have right there, you don't feel it whatsoever. It feels really nice in the hand, but in the pocket, it's not. No, in the pocket, it's fine. But going into the pocket, you do hit this little corner right here. I don't know why they ever put the bill next to the corner of the cutout. Put the cutout on the inside if you're going to do that. Don't put the lock bar cutout on the outside. Put it on the inside, because what happens is your pants go underneath, which this isn't a big ramp anyways, but it did work just fine. But it gets snagged and locked in there. Now, I did figure out a way, because I had to take this in and out of my pocket so much at work, like it was constant, right? I every time I put it back in my pocket, I'd have to pull it back out. Now, pulling it out was really easy, but putting it back in what I'd have to do is I'd have to drop it in and then just slightly rotate like this and then push. And once I got that down pat, it was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. It's not like it's so bad I wouldn't carry it, because let me tell you, I got a couple clips recently that I won't even carry the knife because it's that bad. This isn't like that. However, it does kind of get aggravating. It makes me wonder, like, is this the knife I should carry at work? Because I can easily get another knife that'll work just as good, or, you know, at least, you know, good enough. But the clip will go in and out of my pocket one-handed very easily without me having to adjust at all, because there were times I had to grab my pocket in order for, you know, for me to do that adjustment, you know. So, and I like being able to do it one-handed if I can. Now, other than that, like, and we're going to get into some more good things. A couple other negatives is, one, I don't like that they have a stop pin right there. It's not that big of a deal. And the stop pins aren't the biggest, but it's not that big of a deal because this isn't a heavy blade. So that part really doesn't bother me, but this does. That sound is the stop pins rattling back and forth. I can kind of stop it if I really squeeze it. It still does it, but that's what that is. It's the stop pin just going back and forth. Not that big of a deal. And I really, you know, it's easy for me to forgive that. I'm not really worried about that too much, but you do hear it though. If you try to rattle it, you know, I didn't notice it until I shook it. So it's not like it jumped out at me before that. But next thing is, you can see what, because I won't stop wiping this blade off. Stop doing satin finishes, Twosun. Just stop it. Just stop it already. Only do stone washes. Either that, or just don't do it on your Sandviks. For some reason, they're Sandvik steels. It's a beautiful satin. Don't get me wrong. I love the look of it, but you cannot avoid fingerprints. They're just so apparent. Or do a deeper belt satin. Stop doing this fine. I don't know what it is. A 1200 grit belt satin or something. I don't know what it is, but go lower, go more aggressive so it's not so fingerprinty. It's so fingerprinty. It's horrifying. Like, it makes it seem like the blade's dirty when it's not. And I don't like that. So, and next thing, I already said, you know, it did come with a little bit of a lighter detent. But to me, like I said, it wasn't that big of a deal. But, you know, some people might want it a little stronger. I think a lot of people would be just fine with the way it is. And remember, this was just this one, so who knows how another one would be. Now, other than those things, that's really all the real negatives. You know, when I was talking about this stop pin back here, it's really not that big of a deal because it doesn't land right behind the edge. So I kind of want to take that one back. It's fine where it lands. You know, so let me take that one back. It lands down there. You can see the little stripe right there where it lands. That is not a bad spot. That's a good spot. But the sound of it, you know, anyways, all in all, the build quality is amazing. You know, all the little, you know, parts, the way they fit together, and, you know, even like this right here, the lines, how much they match so perfectly. And then it has like a little geared spot right here, you know, to give you a little bit more traction. And, you know, in a way, even though it doesn't build that much traction for a reverse cut, you know, I did kind of appreciate having a little something right there. So, you know, it's not that much, but, you know, every little bit counts. And you have all this dimpling around the knife so that it does make it a lot, you know, gives you a lot more traction on the knife. So, but yeah, I really like this one. And I'm really happy I got to try it out, because I never would have paid for it because of the recurve. But now that I know, you know, how useful this little recurve is, and I can easily sharpen this. This is so easily sharpened. You know, even if I want to keep the recurve, I would just use a smaller stone. So there you guys go. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.